Davis, Executive Director of the IFOPA, and it's great to be with you today at the end of a very busy week here at the IFOPA. I hope you've seen our recent announcements. First, that we finished our strategic plan, and second, that we have hired our new research director. And so it's my privilege today to get to spend some time introducing you to him and answering some fun questions together. So we'll start by introducing our new research director, Mark Hamilton. So Mark, welcome to the IFOPA.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be working with the organization.
Yeah, it's been a very busy month as we've been doing lots of onboarding. And so you are a PhD scientist. Maybe start by telling us what drew you to the field of research.
Uh,
And how has your work evolved over time?
yeah, I liked science growing up. That's basically it. It was something I was good at. And when I went to university, I thought I was going to be a chemist. And I realized I wasn't that good at chemistry after a while. But more importantly, I was actually finding biological sciences and the different kinds of biological sciences to be far more interesting. So that kind of led to me getting a degree in cell biology and then a PhD in cell biology, and then kind of moving into cancer research. I worked at the Cleveland Clinic in the US, studying how proteins that are highly mutated in human cancers, how they drive those cancers. That eventually led to me moving across into the pharmaceutical industry as a researcher and as a lab head running projects around drug discovery and trying to really understand where, what tumor cells were really doing with these mutated proteins, how they worked, how you could actually intercept those proteins and change how tumor cells behaved and hopefully, develop drugs. After a few years there, I actually did move into the rare disease space for a couple of years with another pharmaceutical companies. And that was my first exposure to FOP. I did not work on that with them. I worked on some other diseases in that company. And then a few years ago, I made a jump back into oncology, but this time working through a nonprofit research foundation, the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation in Connecticut. And there I had responsibility for helping develop and direct the research grants portfolio, and also to help set up some very important collaborative initiatives involving academic groups throughout the US and also in Europe.
Yeah, so you can see, for those of you who are just hearing about Mark for the first time, you can see from his science background to working in pharma to working for another research foundation, why he's such a great fit for the IFOPA and the work that we're doing here. Mark, maybe share about what's been one of your most meaningful research projects in
Uh,
your career so far.
so I'm a big proponent of collaborative endeavors, big ideas, big collaborative endeavors. And when I was at the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, they had a study, a natural history study in myeloma that had been running 12 years or so now. And what it really was they were collecting samples from patients as they were diagnosed, and over the course of their treatment, they would collect additional samples. And they would do these highly detailed genomic analyses, which involved lots of labs and pharmaceutical companies collaborating to fund the projects and to actually generate all this genomic data about myeloma. And what they discovered was that myeloma is not one disease, it's multiple diseases, and they all have different trajectories on how the disease progresses and how it might respond to treatment. Uh, and that was a big tool for pharma to really understand, and researchers really understand the basis of the disease. Now, as part of that project, they'd also been, as they'd been collecting these bone marrow samples from patients, they'd been storing away the immune cells and only analyzing the tumor cells. And the next part of it is cancer isn't just due to tumor genomics, it's actually due to the immune environment as well and how immune systems recognize and eliminate cancerous cells. And so I was given the task of putting together a large collaborative project around understanding the immune system in myeloma. And that project completed analysis of data generation from over 1,100 samples, if I recall rightly. And they're now in the process of still analyzing that data, but they're gaining some very critical insights into what the immune system looks like at the beginning of myeloma, how that might influence how the disease progresses, and how also it might affect how therapy works and how it affects overall disease trajectory. So that's one thing I'm very proud of is this large, very important project that's
Yeah.
going to tell us a lot about the immune system in cancer, not just myeloma.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, one of the things that's so special we feel about the FOP community is the collaboration that happens. So knowing that you have these experiences and bringing groups together to collaborate, that's going to be a great fit for us. So we've heard a little bit about what drew us to you as for being to be the next research director, but what really inspired you to join the IFOPA?
Several things. One, the community. I did work in the rare disease space for a while, and kind of looking at when I think about the research I've done in cancer versus rare disease. Cancer. There's lots of support there. There's a lot of government money. There's a lot of pharmaceutical money because there's a big, they're bigger populations, and the rare disease population and community tends to be overlooked by these companies and organizations simply because they're small. And it really, any progress that seems to be made in those spaces is really driven by the people within the rare disease community, them knocking on doors, them pressing government officials. So it's that level of dedication and basically persistence and desire to make change that really is inspiring. One of the reasons that I was really excited to join the organization.
That's great. So maybe talk a little bit about what does meaningful research look like to you in the context of rare disease or maybe really patient-focused research?
One there was I'm less of the abstract and more of the practicalities. What is the research doing the right thing? Is the research focused on the most critical questions that are going to have the most benefit sooner? So that kind of can cover things from basic research to more translational research where you're trying to understand how a drug does or does not work in a patient population, and also trying to really understand that population itself, about their biology, and how they access drugs. So from my perspective, moving into this role and what I think the research is about, one, it's a small community of patients. It's not a massive, it's a good sized population of scientists and pharma. And I'm a big believer that collaboration, as I've said, is a driver. And with smaller disease areas, there needs to be more collaboration. People need to be willing to really share information as in almost near real time. So and sharing resources, especially when they're very limited resources, and working together in large collaborative networks to answer big questions. And if that means breaking big questions into smaller questions that individual groups can work on, then so be it. So that's kind of my whole take on it, is really to try and build an environment where everybody understands the stakes, which everybody does, but everybody realizes their role to play, and that quick progress is made by everybody being willing to share information with each other, and that includes pharma. The information needs to flow in multiple directions. If we want to make quick progress, then we need to be very upfront with each other and be willing to share critical information.
Yeah, no, that's great. So this summer is the 10th anniversary of the IFOPA's FOP patient registry. So when you think about that, what does it mean that the IFOPA has, you know, 10 years of this longitudinal data following patients? And we've actually got about a third of the world's patient population enrolled in the registry. So what does that mean like for the IFOPA and for the FOP community?
Yeah. Disease research requires big numbers. That's the way to put it. And the more information you have, the better you understand your patients, and some aspects about the disease. So registries are critical things, especially when you think of the rare disease populations where you may only have a few thousand, ultra rare disease populations where you may only have a few thousand people worldwide. The more data you can bring together, the better that is, because that information is used by scientists, it's used by pharmaceutical companies, it's used by clinicians. It allows all of them to understand their patient populations, it understands where they are. It understands, it provides sources of not just demographic information about the patient themselves, but it also leads into things about going and outreach to patients. So you can actually collect additional information that informs how you design clinical trials, for instance, or how you might be able to get samples to study. So, and it also creates that network between the organizations that set them up and the patients themselves. Now, the fact that you have 10 years worth of data, now you know how these patients progress over time, the therapies they undergo, responses. That information is critically important for many, many different levels, especially when we start digging into data analysis and you're trying to relate data and observations to particular behaviors in patients. So ultimately, registries are a critical tool to really understand a disease and to understand patients.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, it's exciting. And I guess, as we talk about this, we should for sure say thank you to the patients, or sometimes it's parents, who are filling out those registry surveys, the enrollment survey, and then the registry and follow-up surveys every 6 months. You're the ones who have given this great data, that's available for researchers to use. So definitely a shout out, to the community for your participation in the registry. So one of the things you're going to be doing, we just finished our strategic plan, and then we hired you, and now you're looking and you're talking to all of the key researchers and the clinicians and the pharmaceutical companies and learning about the FOP space. So you're going to be developing the IFOPA's research strategy for the next 3 years. So are there any areas as you're getting to know FOP that you're really excited about?
Yeah. There's certainly. I've had a lot of very meaningful conversations with experts in the field and pharmaceutical companies and other groups who are doing interesting things in the FOP space around treatments and understanding disease biology and how to treat it. It's very clear there is very common themes in those conversations we've been having that are very much aligned with my own views, which is great. One thing of vital importance is still that the idea of drug repurposing. We have drugs in trials. That's great. We have lots of drugs in trials, and that's a great position to be in. But we still have to be realistic about how many of those drugs may get approved and how beneficial they might be. For patients, it's likely that perhaps not every drug will work in every patient. So we still have to provide those patients with options. Likewise, FOP is a global problem. So, whereas in the US and the EU, you may have access to the most modern drugs, that are very, very expensive. That may not be the case in other parts of the world. And so we still have to be very mindful of those patients and how we can best serve them. So the idea of going back and looking at drugs that are already approved by the FDA or other agencies and look to see how they work, if they will work in FOP patients, is critical. And that's especially in the light of the more we learn about the biology and the pathology of FOP, we can actually identify areas where drugs should work, based on various pathways or molecules that are heavily involved in how the disease develops and progresses. So that's a key area for us still to remain focused on. It provides a near-term solution, hopefully, for many patients as we develop better drugs or better, which may take years to get to patients.
Yeah, no,
So we still have to be able to deal with the near-term helping of patients with therapy.
yeah,
In other areas, we still have to do some very important basic and translational research. We've learned a lot about the progenitor cells that drive FOP, but we're still learning about how those cells interact with the other cells around them that aren't these progenitor cells, how they modify their muscle cells to make bone, those kind of questions. So there's a lot there in that space to really understand around FOP biology that will be critical and which will ultimately help drug discovery moving forward. We also need to think about was it detection, trying to detect flares earlier on and hopefully being able to administer drugs earlier on as well to help minimize the effect of flares. And that could be very important for areas such as improving mobility through surgery. If we can stop the disease progressing, then that may offer opportunities for patients to actually have surgical improvements to their mobility. All very critical work there as well.
yeah.
So, and the key thing, as I said, I keep going back to is collaboration. To answer these questions, I want to build collaborative groups that attack these very strategically.
Right. That's great. Well, we are excited you're here. We've been keeping you busy and there's
Yeah.
lots to do. And it looks like, we know that you're the right person to be on this task for us and we're excited. Many of you should know that the IFOP has a research committee. And so Mark is the staff liaison to that research committee. He's also working closely with our registry medical advisory board as they make decisions about the registry and provide input on the registry. So there's a lot of great groups of volunteers that are working closely with with Mark in these areas too. So we're super excited to have you here. So we talked a little bit about work. So maybe tell us something fun or unique about you that people might not know.
Oh, unique. That's a good one. I don't think I'm unique. I have some weird traits. uh,
Okay.
yeah, one thing is, and my wife always laughs at me about it, is I used to collect watches. I
Uh-huh.
have several hundred watches,
Oh my
but,
goodness.
but I was in a very niche space in that I tended to only collect watches from the Soviet Union before it collapsed,
Oh
and
wow.
generally the up to about the 70s kind of era. So I have this large collection of some quite unusual and rare Soviet Union watches. Uh,
Wow.
that I stopped collecting a long time ago because I ran out of space primarily, and there wasn't much left to collect.
Oh
So,
my goodness, that's amazing. Okay, now then also tell us what's your favorite way to spend your time outside of work.
I'm pretty basic there. I'll hang out with my family. You know, I have my wife and I have two boys, soon to be one because one goes off to college. So
Oh,
I always enjoy hanging out with my family and also my friends. You know, we have common interests like sitting around fire pits drinking beer,
yeah.
kind of thing. So you know, on a weekend
Okay.
every once in a while. So pretty laid back about things and going to concerts. I'm back at that point in my life where I can actually now go back to concerts because my kids are old
Yes,
enough to be left alone or not here.
that's great.
So those are my key things.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's super fun. I mean, I've known you now for several months through the interview process and the last month of onboarding, but it's fun to introduce you to the community. We are like a family here in the FOP community, this global family where we're all working hard, whether we're families or people living with FOP or researchers or clinicians or even the pharmaceutical companies that are working on this. Like we all treat each other like a family, and we're in this fight together. So it's exciting to welcome you to the family and to introduce you to the family. So I'm sure also everyone is curious about your accent. So you are from where tell us where you went to school.
I'm originally from Scotland, in a town called Paisley. You've heard of Paisley Pattern. Everybody has.
Yeah.
That's the town it was originally designed from. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's our
There
claim
you
to
go.
fame.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's one of our major claims to fame. That and Gerard Butler, the actor. So
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm just from Springfield, Missouri. Our claim to
yeah.
fame is Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah.
So there we go. So, well, we are super thrilled you're here. Mark lives in the United States now. So we're a global organization, but our staff is all based in the United States. So he lives in the Eastern time zone. So if you want to connect with Mark, know that he's on the Eastern time zone. If you just go to the website, ifopa.org/staff, then you'll be able to find all of our contact information. If you want to connect with him on LinkedIn or send him an email, you can do that there. So we're so glad you're here, Mark. So
Thank
grateful
you.
that you made the decision to come join the IFOPA, and we're excited to hear more from you over the coming months and year. Once we have the research
Mhm.
strategy really laid out, then we will do something sort of like what we did with the community fireside chats around the strategic plan, where
Sure.
we'll offer opportunities for the community to learn more about what we are going to be focusing on. So we are also, if you've been watching our social media or opening your emails, you know that we are right now in the middle of our In Pursuit of a Cure campaign. Our day of giving will be September 16th. So we hope that you are engaged in all of the social media posts and the stories that we're putting out there. So everybody, please be taking a look at those and sharing those and spreading the word about FOP. All of the money that is raised during the In Pursuit of a Cure campaign from now through the end of September, 100% of those donations go to fund our research work. Our goal is $500,000. That's not all we spend on research in a year, but it is a significant chunk. And so everything that's given to In Pursuit of a Cure is part of that research work. And so we're excited to have you be a part of it. You can donate, you can fundraise. So go to the website. You'll get a button where you can click straight into the In Pursuit of a Cure campaign and learn more about how you can get involved. So thank you, Mark, for being here and leading our research work. And everyone have a great weekend. Some of you in some time zones might already be in the weekend, but have a great weekend. And we look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Okay. Bye, everyone.